What's up, guys?
A couple days after the Super Bowl, we got a lot to get into.
Yes, we do.
All right, so as y'all saw, as 112 million people saw this weekend, biggest television, biggest, most viewed
Television,
anything,
TV show, anything. Yeah.
Can't
Ages.
speak right now. The Rams defeated the Bengals 23-20, and one of the better Super Bowls I've ever seen.
Me too.
So Taylor, how did the Rams pull off this win?
Well, it all started in the trenches. The Rams, they really dominated. I'd say, I wouldn't say both sides of the ball, but they definitely dominated. Their defense line and dominated the Bengals, as many expected. I mean, whenever you have Von Miller and Aaron Donald, Von Miller coming off the edge, Aaron Donald just clogging up everything in the middle. It's difficult for a weak offensive line like the Bengals, and it showed at the end whenever Joe Burrow just got destroyed as the game went on. I mean, they wore down the Bengals offensive front, and that's what won the game, honestly. I don't think it was anything special Matthew Stafford did. I mean, although that no-look pass was disgusting. It wasn't anything special Matthew Stafford or Cooper Kupp did. Or honestly, any of the big names besides one, Aaron Donald. We'll go to this later, but Aaron Donald was the reason that they won this game. His one arm just grasp of death to Samaje Perine to stop them to make it go to fourth and short at the end on the Bengals' last drive. He and his sack at the end. He was the reason that the Rams won this game, and that whole defensive front for them.
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking about the X's and O's, the Rams' defensive front was absolutely, in my opinion, why they won this game. The Bengals did run the ball more effectively than the Rams, so they didn't necessarily dominate the trenches on both sides of the ball, or particularly even on the defensive side of the ball, except for when it mattered. And that obviously comes down to big number 99, one of the best defensive players of all time. Hoping he doesn't retire. I'm a Cowboys fan, so we need everything we can get if he retired. Gives us a sliver more of a chance just for us to be let down again in the first round. But back to the Rams. Again, Aaron Donald. When they were down 17-13 after the Chidobe Awuzie pick, the Bengals had a chance to go down, make it an 11-point game, and just blow this game open and run away with the Super Bowl. And then Aaron Donald makes a huge sack on third down to force them to take three. And then, like Taylor just pointed out on that final drive, he grabbed 250 pounds of Samaje Perine and tugged him back around the waist, and he was about half yard shy of the line to gain. And then the very next play, for whatever reason, Joe Mixon's not in the ball game. They're throwing the ball
So stupid.
against a 5-man box, and who else but Aaron Donald to make the play to win the Super Bowl?
You know, I think it was just so stupid of the Bengals to run Samaje Perine on not just the third down play. I think that was stupid that they didn't run with Joe Mixon.
And Joe Mixon had a good
say
game.
Samaje Perine, third down back, who cares? Whenever it comes down to it, you
have
put your best player out
Exactly.
there. I mean, who's to say that Joe Mixon wouldn't have got that first down? Even with, he would have had that quicker cut off the
Like your best players are gonna
your
best players are gonna perform in pressure moments.
Yeah, and the thing is that when Samaje Perine hit that hole and Aaron Donald grabbed him on that 3rd and 1, and although we can't say whether or not the Bengals would have converted and got the touchdown or field goal, which I think they would have if they would have converted there.
Fiercely.
Who's to say that Joe Mixon wouldn't have hit that hole and gotten that first down? I mean, I don't know why. And then the very next play on fourth down, I don't know if you remember, but Joe Burrow, when he was getting spun around, he made a throw, and it was about a yard short from Samaje Perine. If that were Joe Mixon, who's to say that's not a first down too from that Joe Mixon just almost miracle pass? I mean, Samaje Perine was clueless. You could see he was like clueless running his route, and whenever he had to cut back, whenever Joe Burrow was in the middle getting spun around, he didn't.
He said
stopped.
no awareness.
He stopped,
That was over.
And Joe Mixon, who's a great receiving back. Who's to say he wouldn't have? I don't understand why they didn't put their best players out there whenever the Super Bowl's on the line. I think that it would be a completely different story if they just would have simply put Joe Mixon in the game on those last 2 plays.
Yeah, it brings me back to when the Cowboys were playing for the division title. They were down by 8 on a 4th down. They didn't have Amari Cooper on the field, and this was like 2 years ago. And Jason Garrett said after the game that they felt that was the best personnel for that situation. Quit with the crap. Amari Cooper, you paid him $20 million a year. Joe Mixon, he had a great game. He's one of the best running backs. You put your best players on the field when it matters. So that's the X's and O's. And if we're looking at the grand scheme of things, the reason that I can make a real claim to why they won the Super Bowl was the same reason that Tampa did a year ago. Really, really, really aggressive. They acquired everyone on the market that they could. Odell, Von Miller, Matthew Stafford, Jalen Ramsey. Just like Tampa last year, acquiring, Tom Brady, Gronk, Leonard Fournette. Anyone that was on the market. The Rams just said, we don't need our draft picks. I think they only have like a 5th and a 7th round draft pick next year or something ridiculous like that.
Yeah.
And clearly it paid out for them because they got their ring. Just like Tampa, they went all in on 2020 and 2021. And they may not be good for a while again. But
no, I think that this is a lot different than Tampa in the fact that, well, I don't want to say a lot different, but this is different in the fact that these players aren't just 1-year contracts. Like Odell's going to come back next year. Matthew Stafford, they're about to sign an extension to.
Well, I mean, the Bucs kept everyone from a year ago.
Yeah, for another season, but I think they're gonna piece this team together for another 3-4 years.
I don't know.
I mean, Aaron Donald's young. I don't think he's gonna retire.
You say that,
I think that was BS. I mean,
Aaron Donald's the one contemplating it himself. Odell, he's now coming up on 30 years of age, and he's injured the same knee, same ACL 2 years in a row. Von Miller, he's not in his prime anymore.
I think that Von Miller, but they'll find another edge rusher piece. What I'm saying is that I think that they're going to make a deep run in the playoffs for a few years now, and all those draft picks that they trade away, by the time that they need them really, they'll already. What I'm saying is, by the time they need those draft picks, they'll have them. Like these next couple years, that they traded those draft picks and all that draft capital, they don't need them because they've already got the team. But whenever they need those draft picks, they'll be there. That's why I think it's a little different than Tampa Bay. Because they trade all that draft capital and everything, and now where are they? They don't have anything.
Yeah, I mean, you see some teams try to do these all-out approaches, like the Nets. And to a certain extent, like, you can't just go out and get the best players on the market. You have to know who fits your team.
I mean, look at the Dodgers this year. That's what they did. They didn't make it far. I mean,
yeah, look at the Nets, for instance. I mean, they got Kevin Durant, James Harden, Kyrie Irving. And it was just an awkward fit, that 2-guard system with Harden and Kyrie. It's like they're each just negating. And
Kevin Durant's technically like they're a point anyway. So
it's like they're all just negating opportunities from each other. So, to a certain extent, if you don't have the right fits, you'll be the Nets and you'll go on 11-game losing streaks.
Yeah, I mean, if you would have told me that the Nets wouldn't, whenever they got Kyrie, Harden, and KD, if you would have told me that they weren't going to win a ring together, I would have told you that you were crazy. And I think the same thing can go with these Rams. I mean, they got their ring, but it doesn't always work.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta if you have this all-out approach, you gotta know exactly what's going on. Like Sean McVay, I trust him. He fits this day and age for the NFL. He's a young, cool dude out in coastal California. He fits the area. He fits the league right now with how the offense is. So I trust him with a super team. Steve Nash, guys like that who don't have much experience. I don't know. Very risky.
Yeah. It all comes down to coaching experience, and they went all out with the right coach, and same thing with the Bucs. They went out with the right coach. Bruce Arians, great coach. They went out with the right coach.
Exactly.
Teams like the Nets or any team that tries to do this in the future in the NFL and it doesn't work, you have to have the right coach to do this. And I'm sure we're going to see in the future. I mean, maybe Denver this year. We could see Denver trade for Aaron Rodgers and go all out this year. But I don't know if they have the right coach for that. I don't know if they'll win the Super Bowl like that. So it just all comes down to the coaching fit and how the coach can manage a super team. And Sean McVay is the perfect coach to do that.
Yeah, I mean, you have all these guys from different environments coming in. They got to be able to connect somehow. That's probably going to come from the alpha male at your head coach.
Yeah.
So let's dig back into the Super Bowl here. So Cooper Kupp won the Super Bowl MVP. He had less than 100 yards, less than 60 until the final drive.
But
He
he
did
had 2
have
touchdowns.
a pair of touchdowns.
He had 2 touchdowns.
That you could arguably say won them the game. But there were some other players that made plays that also won them the game. So do you think Cooper Kupp is the MVP?
No. And not because Cooper Kupp didn't deserve the MVP. He's the MVP for this team for the season. I think that truly, if we're talking about it in terms of the playoffs and the regular season, he deserves the MVP for the Rams. Okay, and I think we can agree on this. That Cooper Kupp is the reason they were here in the first place. Let's be honest. If they didn't have Cooper Kupp, they wouldn't be in the Super Bowl. They wouldn't be. Yeah. And Cooper Kupp is the MVP for the season for the Rams, but in this individual game, I would say, even though it's tight, because you can be like, okay, he had less than 100 receiving yards. He had 92 receiving yards. He had 8 receptions and 2 touchdowns. He brought in 80% of his targets, 8 out of 10. He almost accounted for what, half? He was close to getting half of their total receiving yards. I mean, he definitely, I think he definitely should have gotten the MVP, but I don't think it was him who should have gotten it. That sounds confusing. I think him and Aaron Donald should have got co-MVPs because Aaron Donald, he single-handedly won that game on the defensive side of the ball. He had a monster game, and that last drive was just his mark in the sand. It was unbelievable what he did on that last drive.
I mean, we just went over all that. And the reason that Cooper Kupp won MVP is because the NFL needs to change this. They actually vote on the MVP with 2 minutes left in the game, which has been a pet peeve of mine for as long as I've been watching Super Bowls. So they voted on this before Aaron Donald made the 2 biggest plays of the game that won them the Super Bowl.
Yeah, it's stupid.
So, maybe if they realize that they have the technology to do so, if they voted on it when the final whistle blew, then Aaron Donald could very well be your Super Bowl MVP. And that is my Super Bowl MVP. I mean, no disrespect to Cooper Kupp, but he had a bad game for Cooper Kupp standards for the first 3 quarters. And then I don't want to say statistically, but I mean, obviously they were playing bracket coverage on him. So
I mean, when it came down, you also got to put it into perspective. Cooper Kupp, once Odell went down, he was literally getting shadowed by safety constantly. He was in double and sometimes triple coverage when he went over the middle of the field with a linebacker. He was getting double and tripled, and on that last drive, you could say he had the same impact as Aaron Donald did on their last defensive drive.
That's true.
He went down in that last drive, in their last offensive drive, sorry. Cooper Kupp literally was the only thing that Matthew Stafford was looking for and throwing to. It was just Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp. Even if he was force-feeding him, just Coop, just the whole time. And you could say on their final drive, their final drive on offense, he had the same impact as Aaron Donald did on their final defensive drive.
They both had a couple clutch plays that won them the Super Bowl. I mean, and you can say the same about Matthew Stafford too. There's a lot of guys that could have deserved this award.
Matthew Stafford did throw 2 picks, but neither of them were. One of them wasn't his fault, and then the other one was basically it was on a 3rd and long, and it was a punt. So, I mean, still, I
thought Matthew played a great game.
Yeah, but I think it's deserving though that Cooper won this because he was the MVP. He's the reason that they were honestly there. So, I think he does deserve the Super Bowl MVP to go down in his resume. I really do from this year.
That's fair, but
especially if it's that close. I mean, he deserves it.
But it is so hard for a defensive player, an interior defensive player, defensive lineman to make plays of this magnitude, 2 plays in a row.
For sure.
This is the best this is the best talent of receivers we've ever seen in the NFL at one time. So it's a wide receiver league, and the rules have really shifted towards, you can't really touch receivers anymore over the middle of the field or else you're going to get penalized. So it's really easy on receivers nowadays, and for a defensive lineman, an interior defensive lineman, to have the impact like Aaron Donald did, I think that's much more impressive when the game's on the line.
Yeah.
But no disrespect, not taking anything away from Cooper Kupp. I just think this is another really solidification on Aaron Donald's real presence in the NFL.
Yeah.
And what he did in the Super Bowl.
Hope he doesn't retire.
I do too. But then the Cowboys fan inside of me kind of wants him to. All right, let's talk about the Bengals offensive side. Joe Burrow. Should any of this I know the narrative is going to be the offensive line, this, that, and the other. Everything else but Joe Burrow.
No.
Should Joe Burrow have any blame for this loss?
No.
None.
No, because no. What did he do to lose this game? He literally he didn't throw an interception. He didn't play Brady level, okay? But neither did Stafford. He played a very similar game to Stafford. But the problem is he got sacked 7 times strong and he was being pressured after a second. It would be 1 second and boom, 2 people are in his face. And that's partially because the Rams' defensive line is just that good. But it's also mostly because he has no offensive line help. Get this man some help. If he would have had an offensive line, Bengals win this game.
That's what the blame's going to be. And I made a video on my personal TikTok account yesterday showing a few plays that were absolutely Joe Burrow's fault, but are going to go down in the books as the media's deception of the offensive line. For instance, go rewatch the last play, the 4th and 1 that Joe Burrow had. He had C.J. Uzomah wide open in the flat. He pump faked, didn't throw it to him, and then 2 seconds later, Aaron Donald brought him down, and then the game was over. Okay? I don't want to get into the Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow debate, but I just personally think that Justin Herbert and some other quarterbacks in this league don't shy away in these moments and make bigger throws.
Joe Burrow doesn't shy away in these moments.
He doesn't shy away.
Come on, man. No, he doesn't.
He doesn't shy away necessarily, but he doesn't. He didn't lose the game for his team, but he certainly did not do enough to win. He certainly did not win that game. He did not do enough.
You know how many times the Bengals sacked Matthew Stafford? 2 times. You're telling me if the times that Joe Burrow got sacked, which is 7, got subtracted by 5. So take away 5 sacks. Bengals win this game. I guarantee you. They definitely win this game. They'll win this game. If they take away 5 sacks, even the sack count, 2 sacks on Matthew Stafford, 2 sacks on Joe Burrow. Bengals win this game.
Well, you want to use the sack count. I just want to look at total defense. And that's the fact that...
It's the sack count. He got sacked 7 times.
So sacks are all the defenses because according to ESPN, according to the game that happened Sunday night, the Bengals defense forced 8 drives to either result in a turnover on downs a turnover or a punt. And the Rams defense only forced 7. So therefore, the Bengals defense statistically drive-wise actually outperformed the Rams. Yet, even though the Rams either punted or turned it over on 8 of their drives, Joe Burrow just couldn't simply do it enough.
Okay, but you take 5. Once again, you take 5 of those sacks away. He would have done enough. Sacks, yes, that's the point. Sacks, negative yards, and getting hit in the backfield for negative yards. The quarterback, that's sack.
I know what a sack is.
Yeah, if you take 5 of those away, if you take 5. The Aaron Donald sack. I know he had C.J. Uzomah open in the flat. Aaron Donald sack. Take that away. Boom. They first
Aaron
down.
Donald did not take that away.
No, I'm saying if you take that away. I'm just saying if you get the man an offensive line, they win this game. They win this game easily.
I mean, in the 4th and 1 on
By
their first
2 scores, I'd say.
The 4th and 1 on their first drive, he just absolutely missed his read. T. Higgins had nobody within 20 yards of him.
Okay, that was a missed read. Yes.
He had a lot of those. So you can't say Joe Burrow was completely clear. He's being pressured. If Joe Burrow makes that throw, they at least get a field goal. In this game, turns out completely different.
Okay, but the thing is, you can say that, but the reason I think most of the reason that he's missing these reads is because he's literally being pressured after a second. Because what's he supposed to do? The pocket is collapsing.
No pressure on him on that play.
Every other play it is. So he's like, in his mind, he's like, 1 second, I gotta get the ball out. Because he has no trust in his offensive line. They at the end of the day, they have to do something. They will do something.
I'm sure they'll address the offensive line needs.
They have to.
And yes, this was one of the worst offensive lines that's ever made the Super Bowl. But this was not a clear-cut, perfect game for Joe Burrow.
No, but it's not his fault.
No blame. I think O-line probably should have some more ramifications on the loss, on their burden than Joe Burrow. But Joe Burrow, by no sense, played a perfect game.
No, he didn't play a perfect game, but neither did Matthew Stafford. And it comes down to what happened. Every football game at a high level comes down to what happens in the trenches every time. And whoever wins the trenches battle, 9 out of 10 times wins the game in big games. Not just your regular 1 o'clock Sunday game. In big games, if you win the trenches at high stakes, you most likely will win the game unless there's just some unimaginable threat at receiver or running back or whatever. But anyway, and
so the
Rams won the trenches. They won the game.
Rams outperformed them in the trenches. Well, then the Bengals had 4.0 yards on the ground per attempt, and the Rams had 1.9. So according to those,
but the Rams also had 5 more sacks.
According to those stats, I think the Bengals outperformed the Rams in the true trenches.
Yeah, in the running trenches.
I mean,
the trenches also is how many pressures you get,
Joe
how
Burrow
many
had
sacks
a much
you get.
better rushing attack. He had a better defense, drive-wise, statistically, all around.
Yeah, his offensive line. It's not about the defense.
Receiving-wise, he had 2 receivers with over 90 yards. And Matthew Stafford had to deal with Odell Beckham Jr. having a torn ACL in the first half.
And sacks-wise, he had 7.
His only qualified receiver was Cooper Kupp, who ended up winning MVP. So Matthew Stafford had a lot more to deal with than Joe Burrow did, and he shined in the biggest moments, and Burrow didn't.
Because Matthew Stafford...
Sacks? Are you going to bring up sacks
again?
again?
No, because Matthew Stafford... we're also forgetting Joe Burrow... let's be honest. If the Bills end up beating the Chiefs... do you think that the Bengals beat the Bills in Buffalo? No.
Yeah, I do.
I don't think there's any way in hell that the Bills
then
lose that game. You know why? Because this is why. I'm wrapping it back around. Just wait. Because the Bills wouldn't have taken any point in the game against the Bengals lightly. And the Chiefs did for a solid quarter. And then fourth quarter, all of a sudden. Hold up. So... Bills end up winning that game. They go back in Buffalo. There's no way that Buffalo loses that game, and Buffalo would be here. The Bengals, let's be honest, they shouldn't have been here. They really shouldn't have been here. Burrow's in his second year. You can't start hating on him, saying he's not
I'm
good.
not hating on Joe Burrow.
Matthew Stafford's in his, 12th year in the league? Of course, Matthew Stafford knows how to perform better in these situations because he's been here for 12 years.
He's never won a playoff game before this year. So
yeah, because he played for the Lions, but still, he's more seasoned. Of course, I would trust Matthew Stafford more than Joe Burrow currently, but give it another year
I'll give credit where credit is due to Joe Burrow, but go watch the last podcast. We argued a lot on Joe Burrow versus Justin Herbert, and my claim was that Joe Burrow's defense got an interception on the last drive of every playoff game to get them to this point. And, in the overtime drive against the Chiefs, his defense got an interception, and then in overtime, he just handed the ball off to Joe Mixon and walked down to field goal range and won the game. He wasn't asked to do much in the clutch, those games. And then this time, he finds himself down 3 points when the game is on the line, and he couldn't perform in the biggest moment. It's that simple. He missed a wide-open read to C.J. Uzomah that would have put them in field goal range, and potentially they could have won the game on that drive, but he didn't. And, yeah, you're right. Joe Burrow and the Bengals exceeded everybody's expectations.
They shouldn't have been here, honestly.
They shouldn't have been here. And I'll agree with you on that. But for this game, this particular instance, from 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 2 days ago, Super Bowl Sunday, Joe Burrow did not have a clean slate. And
but he wasn't the reason they lost.
He was absolutely not the reason they lost, but he was, with the way that he performed, he wasn't going to be the reason they won.
So
he got rid of the ball faster than I've ever seen him. He seemed like, I don't want to say he seemed panicky, but in some instances he did. He forced the ball to Jamar Chase on a little curl route when he had T. Higgins wide open in the flat on 4th down. He would take his checkdowns way too often, way too early.
Okay, but he was he was still throwing 66%. That's not terrible. And I hate to bring it back to the sacks, but 7 sacks for minus 43 yards. Stafford 2 sacks for minus 13. That's 30 yards difference strong. That is a lot. That's a lot.
Okay, so total that onto the rushing attack, and the Bengals front seven still outperformed the Rams.
Yes, because in the rushing front they did, but nothing at pressure-wise. The game came down to it at the end of the game. The Bengals were up.
Any good quarterback would love a great rushing attack. Ryan Tannehill was terrible this year, and they were the number 1 seed.
Great, but at the end of the game, it came down to who could make the most throwing plays at the end of the game, because he was getting sacked. He was getting pressured. That's why he literally was making those plays on that last drive. They were driving down the field until he got sacked on the last play.
We just went over this play. He had a wide open receiver. he missed him, and then 2 seconds later.
Because he had 3 people coming off the edge.
That's not true. Go watch the film. I mean, I want to put the film up here somehow, but I can't because he had this protection was scat protection. In other words, you're going to only have 5 people to block the Rams 4, and all of your eligible receivers are going to go out on routes. This ball was meant to come out in a second. It was a curled flat read, and C.J. Uzomah was wide open in the flat. Burrow pump fakes, doesn't throw it. And then, of course, if you have 5 underwhelming Bengals offensive linemen to block Aaron Donald, Von Miller, Leonard Floyd, you can't hold up for 2 seconds when you have only 5 in protection because that play was designed to get out in less than 2 seconds, and Joe Burrow didn't, even though he had an open receiver. Okay. That's what ended their season.
But it's still, you can't put the loss on him. It's not his fault. It is their offensive line's fault. It's Eli Apple's fault. And yes, it's partially Joe Burrow's fault for missing some reads. But it's the entire team's fault. It's Samaje Piron's fault for not hitting the hole. It's his fault for not being able to read the play that's going on. It's everyone on the team's fault for not making plays at certain times. It's their defense's fault for having like 6 pass interferences in the end zone.
And 1.
Okay, but like, you know what I mean? Like you can't.
It's terrible.
Yeah, it's not Joe Burrow's fault. It is the team's fault. That's why they lost. And I'd say the biggest contributors are the offensive line and Eli Apple, and then put whoever else you want next. Like turn Eli Apple into anyone else that's a coverage corner in the league. Like I think they win this game. Honestly,
okay, that's fair. But I mean, Joe Burrow. I don't want to say it seemed like he lost his confidence at times, but
I mean, he had 114 million people watching, and he's only his second year in the.
He was getting the ball out in under 1.5 seconds, pretty much over half his dropbacks. And again, yes, that's him not trusting his offensive line.
Yeah.
But yeah, to a certain extent, some of the blame should be on Joe. The narrative is always going to be around this team from this year that it was the offensive line's fault, and some stats show that.
A lot of stats show that. He got sacked 9 times in the Titans game. That's unbelievable that they even won that game. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
That they somehow
He had no
won
touchdowns and 1 pick.
Yeah, but he got sacked 9 times. There's a reason he had no touchdowns and a pick. I'm just saying, like, of course, it is the offensive line's fault. Number 1, number 2, Eli Apple, and then number 3, you can say Joe Burrow if you want, but I don't think it is Joe Burrow. I think you can put just the rest of the team at number 3 because if you replace the offensive line with any offensive line that's better, they win. They win this game. You replace them with the crappy Dolphins offensive line. They still win.
I don't think so.
I mean, I'm just saying, like, you can't say it's like his fault. It's the team's fault.
I mean, rushing wise, they didn't have too terrible of a game. I mean, they got
they have a decent rush blocking offense line. They're decent at rush blocking, but they're garbage at pass blocking. They have to improve it if they want to win the Super Bowl. I don't want Joe Burrow to turn into Andrew Luck. I really don't.
But you know what? Great start to Joe Burrow's career. Already made a Super Bowl. He's young.
Oh yeah.
And most likely he's only getting better.
He definitely
again, this
is.
was a great Super Bowl, most watched. If I can speak clearly this time, television broadcasted network, something along those lines in the past 5 years.
I don't know what was more watched. Was it? I can't even.
It was the most watched.
No, I'm saying what was more watched before. Like what was watched equally that
Probably
much?
a Super Bowl.
Was it that or like the finals? It might have been. It might have been the Cavs Warriors finals, Game 7.
I don't think so.
Maybe.
The NBA doesn't get as much views as the NFL. Who knows?
Maybe.
Either way, thank you guys for sticking around this long. If you have made it, we have some great content coming out this offseason. Some great ideas. We also will be streaming NBA with Eli and Jay. We know y'all miss them. As the NBA season starts to heat up.
I'll be hosting the NBAs.
Yes, sir.
Y'all can check that out. We most likely are streaming later this week. It'll be at my house. Completely different setup. It'll be really cool. Y'all go check that out.
All right.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Check that out. Peace.
See y'all.